Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another installment of Good Natured. Um, I'm indoors. It's a beautiful night and I'm inside. I didn't quite have a chance to set up outside the way I wanted to because I went on a last minute um, scouting adventure. Uh, that's why I almost forgot to send out the invitation to y'all this evening as well. It turns out one of our local wildlife rehab facilities, Anderson Humane, which is now where Fox Valley Wildlife is located. They are looking, and this is where you can all chime in, they are looking for a place to release seven young chimney swifts that they have rehabbed and they're I guess they've fledged now and they want to try and find a roost that's being used by multiple birds, not just a roost where a family is raising its own offspring, but one where there's a lot of individual swifts. And I was really hoping that some of the swifts wanted to go to bed early tonight. I was looking over here at Doc Morgan's, the old post office, and trying to see over by I don't know if it's still a saddle shop or the store there. It used to be Up Down Ski Shop there on the corner of 31 and 64. If you guys know of any roosts, the other ones that we're hoping to get eyes on are the building, the Mara Lee building. That's what I call it, the southeast corner of State and Third Streets in Geneva, and then also Marion and Rich Miller, who head up the Chimney Swift I guess, education and outreach for King County Audubon. They were also going to try to see if they could have someone take a look at limestone coffee down in Batavia. So lots of different places that we know swifts are hanging out. But if you happen to know of a roost in the Tri-Cities area that has lots of swifts using it, we're not quite into migration yet, but the thinking is that if these birds can be introduced into a roost that's not just a family and its offspring, that they might be accepted there, and they could learn how to be swifts then. With that, let's get started with tonight's screen share because I did actually want to show you. Let's see. I wanted to show you what some baby swifts look like. Let's see. Where are they though? Let's go here. All right, are we? Oh. Can everybody see a baby chimney swift? So these were actually some that were. This was not this year's. This was a couple of years ago. These were swifts. This has happened a couple of times now out in the Fox Mill subdivision. Which is west of town here, over by Campton Hills. That's a relatively new development. Well, new in that it's not 100 years old, it's more like 20 years old. But the modern way of building chimneys calls for liners and caps. And neither of those things are chimney swift friendly. They're there to actually to keep things out of chimneys. But every once in a while, a cap blows off out there at Fox Mill. This is, like I said, it's happened twice that I know of. And swifts have gone down. There's some houses in that subdivision that have really tall, very attractive, I guess, from a swift's point of view, these like beacon chimneys. And the birds go down far enough, they get past the liner, and then they're into just above the what I call the firebox. You know where the fire would be in the chimney, and there's brick and mortar, and they've been able to attach nests there. Anyway, these two little birds fell out of one of those nests. I wanted to zoom in so you could just get an appreciation. We see these birds zooming around up above the buildings. They're pretty. we see them pretty frequently. In fact, I was just listening to them too. They make a very characteristic twittering sound when they're out there flying around. But the river towns here along the Fox, there's lots of insects. These guys are strict insectivores. They spend their entire day flying around because they can't perch. Their legs are weak. Check out the little claws though on their feet. Even at this young age, these birds are are equipped for gripping and holding on. When they enter a roost like a chimney, they position themselves vertically. They don't grab onto any kind of perch like we picture, say, a robin or a cardinal or something. They hang by those claws, and they spend the night in that position, and then when morning comes, they swirl out and they go off and they spend the day foraging for bugs again. So anyway, if you happen to know, if you could put in the chat or shoot me an email of an active chimney swift roost, the goal of the folks up at Anderson is to get these birds out with a group within the next week or so. So yeah, that'd be great. And if and when it does happen, I'm going to see if I can be there and maybe get some pictures too that we could share next week. All right, so the big thing that was on my calendar for the last week, and maybe some of you too, I know several of you were there. It was a Rusty Rodeo. And this was an event, we were targeting our rusty crayfish in 3 locations here in St. Charles. There was also an additional site run by our partners, the Fox Valley Park District and the Forest Preserve District down at Glenwood Park in Batavia. This was our kickoff site. This was not the ideal way to run this event, but we had to start publicizing this back in March, and the intel we had at the time was that Primrose Farm would be a great location. Well, it maybe in a perfect world, if we'd been able to engineer a lot of stream bank rehabilitation, getting our streams, stream bank. What am I trying to say? The stream there is in horrible condition. It's eroded. It's full of silt. It was not suitable. There was not a crayfish to be found. Plus, we were sinking up over our boots as we were hunting for crayfish at Primrose Farm. So, anyway, it was too late to switch gears. So we went ahead with that as our training site. People gathered there, received their instructions, and then they traveled to 3 sites along the Fox River. Some people went to the site that we used last year as well. That's Fearson Creek at Fearson Creek Park. Now, last year we had over 125 people in this stream, and when you're doing something like going after an invasive species like the rusty crayfish, which ruins habitat for other crayfish as well as game fish, and really just makes a nuisance of itself. When we're going after a target species like that, you don't want to ruin, do your own share of ruining of habitat. So this year we wanted to make sure we had fewer people in this stream. So this is what Fearson Creek looked like this year. I think we held the attendance there to something around 60 people. Interestingly enough, they did not get a ton of crayfish out of there. So maybe our efforts from last year had some impact. We are going to be doing a post-rodeo survey in the next week or so of these 3 sites to see, if more crayfish moved in, or, how those rusty numbers compare to what we were seeing during the event. This was the scene down at Glenwood Park. So this is Glenwood Park is south of downtown Batavia, about 2 miles south. There used to be a dam here. It was called the South Batavia Dam. It used to supply power for the Aurora Elgin electric line. And when that dam was removed in 2007, it created this wonderful free-flowing area that still had rusty crayfish. the partners down there reported 375 attendees and over 17 kilograms of rusty crayfish caught. Now, I don't know the poundage or the kilogrammage of the crayfish that we caught in St. Charles, because we're still counting. We have our tally slips that everybody turned in. I know we're over 1,000. I did put a question out to the partners. Are we measuring the numbers of crayfish, or are we measuring, the weight of what we caught? So we're still trying to work out the data side, but a lot of crayfish were found down there as well. Now this was the downtown St. Charles location that we use. This is the stretch of river that runs alongside the Bob Leonard Walkway, which is on the west side of the river. It runs between, say, Illinois, the Illinois Bridge and the Prairie Bridge. And then we also had people in the river there by Mount St. Mary Park. Going after this little devil here, rusty crayfish, so named for their rusty coloration, this red, kind of barn red. It's not a bright red. Looks like somebody dipped their fingers in barn paint and then tried to pick up a crayfish. Besides crayfish, we pulled a lot of trash out as well. Now this, I want to see if I can get word to our friends over at the city, because I'm sure the people who live along this stretch of the Fox River weren't real fond of having trash brought up. We did haul away most of it, but this piece was just too heavy, and I don't think they're real fond of us leaving trash behind. So I want to make sure we get this old. Look at this. It's a cash register. Can only imagine the circumstances of how things like that end up in the river. These kids hauled it over to the edge, and I don't know if I can zoom in enough or if it was even visible from this angle, but what this young woman is doing here is she is trying to extricate a rusty crayfish from inside the cash register. He was holding on really tight and was pretty determined to not leave his little hidey hole there, but she and her, I think that was her brother she was working with, they did eventually coax it out, and it was a big one too. It was over 4 inches long. Here's, let's see if I can turn that. Where's my rotating?
Can you eat them?
That's a, yes, you can eat them, but there's a but, and that is this. So the fishing laws permit people to catch native crayfish. If you have a state of Illinois fishing license, you can go out and you can hunt and catch crayfish, and you can possess them and eat them. The rusty crayfish, it's not just an invasive species, it's considered an injurious species because it causes harm or injury to other species. So no one is permitted to take possession of rusty crayfish. The IDNR does not want to take the chance of any of these individuals getting you're removed from a site where they're established and then accidentally getting introduced somewhere else. So yes, you can eat them, but no, you can't. Does that make sense? They're edible, but the law doesn't allow it. Now, up in Michigan, I know they have done some rusty removal events where they actually have cooked them on site and eaten them there. I think that's we'd have to jump through a few more hoops there. That gets into food preparation and liability if we didn't cook them all the way through. But yes, they're edible, but the law is preventing it. Does that make sense? I know it makes it hard when we're trying to. You think the more you can eat, the better, but. Yeah, the law says no. And the other thing too, so this particular one is pretty large. a lot of the ones we caught were, say, 3 inches or less. So you'd have to really find a lot of those, and there's really not much meat on those smaller ones in order to, make a meal out of them. Let's get rid of this here. There we go. So this is one of the collection vats that we had at the downtown location. I know we were over 1,000 at this location. I don't know what our totals ended up at, though. We're still, like I said, we're still adding up the tally sheets. But let's just say a good time was had by all. We're looking forward to next year. Now, I threw this in here just because this was what I wrote about. This is the column that ran this past Thursday. It was about how snakes eat and how they feed on their prey. They don't have hands. They don't use knives or forks or spoons. They're somehow able to get that prey down that gullet, and it largely has to do with their amazing jaws. And some things I hear it so often. You probably have too. It sounds legit that snakes. I've heard dislocate. I've heard unhinge. Their jaws, that lower jaw actually comes loose. It looks like it does, but it really doesn't. The snake's jaw, lower jaw, has extra bones, and it also has flexible tendons that allow the snake to open its mouth up really wide. And then where our lower jaw is fused at our chin, their lower jaw, the two sides operate independently. So when they've got a prey item in their mouth, they can actually walk it in by moving those lower jaws, one side and then another, stretching out and then pulling back and pulling that food farther and farther into the mouth and then down the throat, where the muscles can take over. So that's what the column was about. But the really interesting thing happened after the column ran. And I don't know, he hasn't called again today, but I've so far gotten 5 calls from a gentleman who is extremely upset that I chose to write about snakes. I'd play the voicemails for you, but there's quite a bit of salty language. He accused me of, he's calling for my resignation, that I shouldn't, who do I think I am to be writing about snakes? Who would actually want to ever read about snakes? And what's kind of funny is that he must have read the article. Yeah, he's called 5 times. Actually, I would have called him back to ask him to please stop calling, but he's using, it says anonymous on the caller ID, and it says unknown number. And I haven't been able to figure out how to get that number to come back. It's on my my desk phone, not my cell phone, which is good because my cell phone is also what I use for personal calls. So, but it was just a funny backlash. And then today I was down at the homestead in Batavia, and a woman came up and she's got this article in her hand. She's got the actual paper, and I see the picture, and I thought, oh no, she's going to give it to me too. Maybe I shouldn't have written about snakes. Well, it was she had this big grin on her face, and she said she just wanted to thank me for it, that she never knew snake jaws could be so interesting, and she was going to save the article. She was going to share it with her family, her grandkids. So. Anyway, I'll keep you posted too if anything more comes of the mysterious anonymous caller and his intense dislike of snakes. And yeah, if you want to hear the salty language in the voicemails, let me know. I can share those with you too. I did call Park Safety because I wasn't sure. I don't know where this guy lives. I'm guessing he's not in the area. A lot of readers of Shaw Media papers live in even different counties throughout northern Illinois. But the thought did occur to me, he might live right here in St. Charles. So I did let Park Safety know that somebody wasn't happy with me, and we'll see what happens. All right. So I had a lot going on this past week. My mom's been in and out of the hospital and rehab with her. She broke her hip. And so I personally didn't take a lot of other photos to share with you, but God bless you guys. You have been out and you have been taking pictures. I'm going to stop this screen share and we're going to go over. I'm going to see if I can make this happen. Diane, I've got your photos lined up here. Diane went out and put together a really nice series of photos that shows just the ecology of milkweed. How there's a lot of talk now about, we got to plant more milkweed, we got to save the monarchs. But milkweed has a lot going on beyond monarchs, and there's they all get along. Sure, some things do eat other things, but that's really the essence of ecology and how pieces all fit together. I'm going to see if I can open up these pictures here, Diane. Let's see. All right. So, picture one. These are aphid, and Diane, if you're with us tonight, if you want to chime in with any of the any more description, certainly feel free. I just thought this was really cool because it shows ants. We often hear about ants farming aphids, and sure enough, here they are. These aphids, I believe you said they were oleander aphids.
Yes, non-native oleander aphids.
And so they're actually feeding on the milkweed sap, right?
Yes.
Which I thought was interesting. They're doing quite well. All these little white things here, those are all cast exoskeletons. Those are shed skins that aphids, just like all of our other arthropods, as they grow, that exoskeleton comes off. Aphids always strike me as I think of them as like little go-karts with twin exhaust. If we zoom in here, they've got their 6 legs, but then they've got these 2 little projections here on the back. Aphids are known for their diets are liquid. They're feeding on plant saps and fluids, and so their excretions are also very liquid, and they tend to be kind of sweet. They're known as honeydew. In fact, if you've ever parked your car underneath a tree and then you get in and the windshield's got all those little tiny dots and people say, oh yeah, that's the sap from the tree. Well, that's actually the honeydew from the aphids that are in the tree. Trees don't like to just let their fluids go on their own, but as aphids are feeding on the leaves, they're dripping out this liquid, and that's what ends up on your car's windshield. So yeah, here's ants taking good care of their little aphid buddies. Zoom back down here, and we've got. And I named these photos, which then of course now they're going to display them. These are going to be displayed in alphabetical order as opposed to any sort of order you or I might have envisioned.
Oh, no problem.
Here's an earwig, and I believe this is a female, right? Because it doesn't have the long curved projections on the end. It's got the shorter. She's also got a large abdomen there, but she's got the shorter circe here on the tip of her abdomen. So she's tromping around gleaning things as well. We've got our lady. Is that yeah, it's a ladybug, right? I know we've got another one in a future one. And then here's some, look who's, little devils are everywhere right now. There's a Japanese beetle on this blossom. Right back here. Getting a good sip of nectar.
I was reading about the Japanese beetles, and they've done different studies on them, and they think that they are a problem for milkweed because they destroy the flowers and therefore the seeds.
So they're not feeding on nectar; they're feeding on the actual flower itself.
Well, I'm not sure, but somehow they destroy the flower, and
Okay.
therefore the milkweed doesn't go to seed.
Okay. Well, yeah, I know. I've seen what they do to like grape leaves, and they'll just skeletonize the whole leaf. So it would make sense if they're feeding on this, that they're not leaving much to do the important job of setting the seed. Um,
I think I read that they feed on the umbels.
okay, and yeah, that would because if the flower is there to form the seed after it's pollinated, and you take away the parts, and it's not going to work. Uh,
And the other thing about the Japanese beetle, because it's predominantly found now in the Midwest, which is a huge milkweed monarch area, that that's problematic.
oh boy. So, we do have some look-alike beetles, or beetles that are similar to the Japanese beetle, but these white dots here are pretty distinctive along the sides. Um,
You know,
some,
when I took that photo, Pam, I didn't know there was a Japanese beetle in there.
oh, really? Well, just proof that they can turn up just about anywhere. Well, then this was, and Susie, you had sent some pictures like this as well. We talked last week about seeing evidence of monarch caterpillars feeding on milkweed plants, and Diane, you showed both the top view and the bottom view of caterpillar signs. So if you're out looking, some of you had said, "Boy, I never see any caterpillars on milkweed." These are some telltale signs. So this is the view from above. These little circles here. There's one in the lower left. Looks like there was one started here next to it, that white part with the hole in it. And then up at the top here, there's another part that's been removed. And if we look underneath, look who's doing. Here's our, and this is probably what, maybe a third instar. They start out much smaller than this, but they chew in those circles, and it helps them avoid the torrent of sap that comes out, and saves them from getting buried and sticky, and not able to survive that thick latex sap. So there's some strategy to how they go about feeding on this toxic plant. Here's another ladybug. This one we can see. The other one I couldn't see this area here above the head, the pronotum, but you can see. This is a perfect angle to see it in too. How the dark markings form an M for multicolored Asian lady beetle. But yeah, just chilling out, maybe thinking about having some of those aphids for a snack. Um, Here's milkweed beetle. And Diane, is this some of the milkweed in your yard that has the yellow condition?
Uh, that's I have most of my milkweed is common milkweed, but this is, as you can see, it's kind of a thinner leaf, and it does have kind of a yellowish cast.
Okay.
But
You know,
I almost never find monarchs eggs or caterpillars on this type of milkweed, because it's just really hard, because it's got smaller leaves and thinner leaves, and just really difficult to work with. So I don't really like it, but it just grows.
it came up. Well, and I wonder, because I experienced this with some milkweed at my house a couple years ago, and Joy Dewar told me that there's a condition that milkweed, I believe it's a bacteria, that it's called milkweed yellows,
Mhm.
which sounds like a sentence, but it's also a condition, and it refers to the yellow nature of the leaves. So check that out and see if maybe that lines up with what you've got there.
Yeah, I'm not, I have seen the yellow problem before with the common milkweed, but I kind of think that this is just a different type of milkweed, but I've never identified it. I should try and identify it.
Yeah.
That'll be a project for me.
Like a variegated
Hmm.
form or something. Okay. Yeah, but so these beetles again, these are all well, the aphids aren't native, but this is a native milkweed beetle there to do its job of feeding on milkweed, and um, they are vegetarian, so they're not posing any harm to our monarchs either. Another shot. Really cool looking bugs. Now this, same colors, but let's look at it. It's got a lot of different things. It doesn't have the hard wing covers that we saw back here on this beetle. See how the wing covers here go all the way down to the tip of the abdomen on this little guy. He's not quite done yet. This is a milkweed bug, not not a beetle, but a true bug, a hemipteran. And it's also in it's not an adult stage yet. So its wings, the pads have formed here. Oops, somebody's. Can we check our mutes, everybody? There we go. Um, the wing pads here on this nymph, these will eventually extend. In fact, I think if we go to the next one, yeah, here's the full grown bugs. And ensuring that we will have a plentiful supply of milkweed bugs. So if we go back, this will develop into that, given another couple of molts. And then finally, we have evidence that life does go on. Monarchs are coming. This is a monarch egg. And kudos to you, Diane, for getting a picture. I've tried multiple times, and my camera always focuses on other things, but this little looks like a little pearl on the leaf. Was that on the top of the leaf?
Yes, that's what I wrote, because I almost always, I mean, if you watch a monarch lay the eggs, they start on the top of the leaf and lay the egg on the bottom of the leaf.
Yeah, she curls her abdomen underneath.
Right. So I'm trying to figure out what kind of gymnastics happened here. But this was definitely on the top of the leaf. So, and that's very unusual. So.
Yeah, well, and so monarchs, they're called brush-footed butterflies. They have the ability to sense their first pair of legs has a lot of sensory capabilities, and they can feel around. They don't like to select milkweed leaves that are too hairy or too tough. They also are believed to be able to sense the potency of the toxins in the sap, because some plants have a lot of that chemical, and the little monarch caterpillars aren't able to handle that. So I wonder, what and things are, moving along with monarchs, but they arrived later, and it sort of seems like now they're playing catch up. Maybe she was just in such a hurry to get her egg laid that she didn't really take the time to put it in its proper position. But yeah, there it is on the top. So unusual, very unusual to see one like that. Well, thanks, Diane. Appreciate you sharing those awesome photos.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't muted. I also said that when I see a monarch egg, I never know for sure it's a monarch egg until I tilt the leaf, so I'm looking at it from the side. Because if you look at it from the side, then you can clearly see that it's an upside down football. And so then I know, because otherwise it can sometimes be a blob of milkweed sap.
Oh, yes.
But by turning it sideways, you can actually see the shape. And so I look at it from the side, and then I know for sure. Okay. But the other thing I noticed about that egg, which I had really not thought about before, is
Let me see.
that the egg is laid in, and I'm going to have to check out every other egg I find from now on, that the egg is laid kind of a good distance from from the veins
Oh, uh-huh.
of the plant, which makes sense because you don't want the baby drowning in the milkweed
Again,
sac.
yeah, that torrent that's going to come out is when a little so this thing is it's about the size of a head of a pin. It's very small. So the caterpillar that comes out of it is also going to be very small. Their very first instar, they've got this sort of outsized black head. The head changes in subsequent molts, but I think really there's so much power for the size of that tiny little creature so they can bite in and they start to feed. But if they were to bite into, one of these main stems here, one of these main veins, and there's documentation. You can find pictures, of people who have found um, monarch caterpillar first instars who didn't survive. They did make a bad choice. But yeah, look at the placement. So more sap in these larger veins, and the egg is towards the smaller ones. Very cool. All right. Let's see. Now I'm going to see if I can do another screen share here. Those Aston sisters, Jerry and Laura, you guys were up in Michigan last weekend, and we're lucky enough to spot a fawn nursing from its mom. And I'm going to see if I can pull that up here. Hold on here. All right. Get the...
Laura actually missed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she opted to go shopping in Saugatuck while her husband and I and our nephew William braved the 303 stairs up to the top of Mount Baldy.
So this was now. Did I do this? Are you guys watching it, or is it just me?
It's just you. It's just a little square.
Oh no! All right, let me try that again. I'm getting. Please move this window away from the shared application. All right, I'm gonna stop the share. Let me try it again. Because it's really cute. You guys are gonna love this.
It made the steps worth the trouble. And actually, William missed it too because he'd gone up ahead of Slow Kevin and I, but then some random teenagers who bounded up the steps got to see it.
Aw. All right, is it working now?
Yes.
All right. No, this poor mom. I mean, this is not a baby fawn. This one's been around a few months, and look at the. I don't know if mom is maybe starting to dry up there, but that baby is really giving it to her. Getting all the finest milk that mama has to offer. Let's watch the little fawn's feet too, as it's kicking the sand up. All right, play. Oop. I guess I just have to drag it here. But very cool. That doe does not look old enough to have children of her own.
Yeah, she is really small.
Yeah.
He right when he went up to her, he just kind of banged her underside and then started nursing, and I was so mad because I turned off my video and he came out around her backside, and then she was a little nervous of the people, so they wandered off really quickly afterward. But I'm like, oh, if I kept filming, I would have gotten a good shot of the
No, you still did good. This was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, it was special.
So yeah, and we've got a multitude of deer here in the Tri-Cities too. People have been writing me about asking, how do I deter deer? There are pages of plants on the internet that are not tasteful to deer, that deer will avoid, but everybody who's writing me has a yard full of hosta, which is basically deer salad. So I'd imagine this scene is playing out around here too. 302 steps closer. But thanks for making the effort, Jerry, and sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
And then I'm gonna try another share here. Let's see. This was where are they here? All right. So this is Bob. You were up in Wisconsin, and you had a friend who was doing bat surveys. And this documentation Bob sent was really cool. So 2 different nights, this person went out with a sonar detector and listened for the bats in Wisconsin, 2 different counties in Wisconsin. And let's see if I can get these to come up. Let's see. Well, this is the, and if anybody wants a copy of this, let me know. I would be glad to forward it. Bob sent this along. This is a publication put out by our friends up at the Wisconsin DNR, Bats of Wisconsin. A lot of species that are present in Wisconsin are also present here in Illinois. I found it interesting, the status of a lot of these bats, like the little brown bat, which here in Illinois is a species of conservation concern. Well, it's also in trouble up here in Wisconsin. It's considered threatened. This is one of 2 bat species we have in our area that are called colonial bats, which means that they roost in groups as opposed to the solitary bats, which are the ones that roost singly in the woods, in trees. But colonies form of little brown bats and then also big brown bats. And I thought this was interesting. It is also, so we have big brown bats in many places. I can think of some right here in downtown St. Charles that are home to big brown bats. Well, up in Wisconsin, they are also considered a threatened species. As we scroll through the list, the long-eared bat has got threatened status in Wisconsin. The little pipistrelle bat is state threatened. The Indiana bat, this is a bat that's really been hit hard by white nose fungus, and it is a federally endangered species. So that was says it's only been recorded once in Wisconsin. They're very rare in this area too. As you get down farther into southern Illinois, where where caves are more common and mines are more common, that is where this bat tends to hang out more. I don't know that we've ever seen one, Indiana bat, at least in this part of Illinois. And the silver-haired is a species of special concern. We do see this one during migration. The red bat is also considered a species of special concern, and to my knowledge, this one doesn't have a special status in Illinois either. This and the hoary bat are probably our largest bats. I think the hoary is the next one. Yeah. So hoary, named for the hoary, like frosting on its fur. But it too is considered a species of special concern. So this little guide shows what their calls look like. And then I'm going to see if I can pull up, because Bob sent me these really cool. All right, I'm going to stop the share for a minute and see. Yeah, I thought I had them pulled up here where I could jump. There's 2 routes that Bob's friend up in Wisconsin drove, and the maps, it shows how many hits and how many different species were detected using the bat detector. You know what, I'm going to stop the share. I don't know how much of that you guys were seeing. Let me just find that real quick here. So this was on the night of July 10th. Nope, it didn't show up. Hold on. All right. It's going to be worth it, guys. Trust me. There we go. So this, I believe this is done on a volunteer basis, Bob. Tell me if I'm wrong on that, but so this was on the night of July 10th. Here's the county that was surveyed. This is the route that was driven. 47.82 kilometers, 4 species detected. And the brown circles with the black dot in the middle, that's the big brown bats. And I'm kind of curious, these areas that it was detected under, if those are near areas where there might be a roost, like maybe there's a barn nearby there. Big brown bats in our area, they will congregate in buildings like that, and this looks like an area that might have some large barn or old houses even for the bats to hang out in. Big brown / silver haired would be these yellow dots, and then little browns here, and here, and here. Hoary bats here. Really, really cool information that's being collected and turned in. This was in Marquette County, and then see if I can open up the other one. I'm gonna stop, and we'll pull up our July. So this is the one that Bob was actually on. There we go. So this was this was near Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and I had big brown bat, hoary bat, red bats. Really, really interesting types of surveys that are being. I don't know that. I know Illinois. There is an opportunity for community science with bats in Illinois, but it involves. It doesn't involve driving and using sonar equipment or you know, listening for calls. The program here in Illinois, if you know of an active roost, you can observe it in the spring and in the fall. In the spring, the colonies are, and again, this would just be for the big brown and the little brown bats, but you would see, you would count the number of bats that fly out in the spring, and then you would count them in late summer or early fall. And the difference between those two, the thinking is that the second count there would be more bats, and then that would tell you the production or how many pups were born in that particular location. That's the only program that I'm aware of here in Illinois. If you'd like info on it, though, let me know. I could send you some links and get you hooked up with that. But really cool stuff here, too. All right. And then, Mike, I have to thank you. Last week we had an extended discussion about teasel. And at least one of us, Michael, we was inspired to go out and cut down 2 big bags of teasel heads, getting those flowers out of there. And the question was, well, now what? What do you do with these bags? The guidance from our restoration crew, as well as the Forest Preserve District, was to just let those flowers decompose and turn to mush, and then they won't be able to produce any seeds. And that's at least several hundred or thousand teasel seeds that are being kept out of the environment. So thanks for that effort, Mike. And yeah, if you want to dump them over the neighbor's fence, Mike's my next door neighbor. If you want to start a teasel garden next door, well, we'll talk about that later. I see we've got a couple of chats here. So yes, we talked about eating the crayfish. How do the crayfish react to all the movement in the water? Well, so crayfish, when they want to get out of an area, they will propel themselves backwards, and they then try to take shelter underneath a rock. And what we had told people at the Rusty Rodeo to do was to lift a rock and get the crayfish to propel into the net that they were carrying. They would scatter, and that with that number of people that we had in the water, the water got pretty cloudy, pretty turbid from all the silt that was being stirred up. But it was still the frightening numbers, as several of you commented. We didn't find any native crayfish. It was all rusties. So hopefully over time, getting these bullies out of there will allow our natives to come back and reassert themselves in their territory. But Meg is asking, are they all along Fearson Creek? There are, so where we were collecting, which was near the mouth of the creek, where it flows into the river, there were a lot there last year. There seemed to be fewer this year, but then the stretch that goes through Leroy Oaks, there's the spot everybody I think calls it the beach. It's where the creek bank is becoming more and more eroded, but it's where everybody jumps in with their inflatables and goes for a float. There's a lot in that area there. Just downstream from there, there's a lot of native mussels. So we have to be really careful about, if we wanted to remove them from there, we'd have to make sure we kept people contained in a small area. I would imagine, Meg, because they're also in Otter Creek, which is in north, we have, for over 20 years, we conducted wetland ecology classes for 5th graders there. And like when I started here in 2007, we had a pretty good diversity of crayfish there. I would say we would find northern crayfish and northern clearwater crayfish and calico, the occasional calico. And then we'd also see these little glass shrimp, which are in that same crustacean family or group. We don't see any of those now. We only see rusties and otter as well. And otter becomes fearsome after it crosses under Balcombe Road. So I think they're pretty firmly established throughout the stream there. even though Fearson has still got a very high rating, it's still got a lot of diversity, but those crayfish species are taking a hit.
And I'm just wondering if I should go back in my old backyard.
Oh.
See if I can get some out.
Take a peek. Well, and that's the thing, so we were able to hold this event because we have a permit from the Department of Natural Resources. And there's still a part of me who's a little worried about it because and for about 5 years, we had a separate permit from the IDNR, and it was called an injurious species permit, and it allowed us to collect this rusty crayfish and transport it back to the nature center, which, by the way, all the crayfish that were caught at the 3 St. Charles sites and as well as Glenwood, those have all been frozen now, and we said we were sending them to freezer camp, and those are now going to be food for all the turtles that we have in the indoor ponds at Hickory Knolls and at Red Oak Nature Center. So they're all being put to use, and none of them are going anywhere. But that injurious species permit, that has not, ever become an issue. We have not had to resurrect get another permit to do this event. So yeah, it seems kind of like a non sequitur. We want to get rid of them, but no, you can't go catch them. Doesn't that seem, doesn't really make sense? But that's
okay.
in the DNR's eyes, you're not allowed to possess them at all. So you could go, I guess, and look to see if there's any there.
Well, I was thinking, should I get my grandchildren myself to go out there?
Well, and I have
rusty crayfish.
it's one of those laws that are a rule, it's a regulation that would be really hard to enforce, but yeah, the letter of the law says you cannot possess those species.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, the screwball with the voicemails, I can a lot of times tell when I look our voicemails. I access them through my laptop, and it will tell the date and the time that the call came in. And generally speaking, anything that's after, like, say, 9 o'clock at night or very, very early in the morning, I can expect it to be kind of a doozy. And this guy, I'm just sort of waiting to see if he calls again. And if we do have to take further action, I'll definitely keep you apprised of that. And yeah, not engaging. Well, and it's funny, Meredith, because when I talked to Park Safety, I said, at what point, that was after like 3 phone calls, I said, at what point does it become harassment? And then like right after that, I got 2 more. But what Park Safety said is that you can't file a harassment complaint until you actually make contact with the person and ask them to stop. So we'll see. It's been a day now. Maybe he's decided to let it rest. Maybe he put his paper out in the recycling bin and it's a dead issue. Let's hope. And yes, isn't that funny? You see teasel everywhere. Once it's like that. If you go in the creek and you look for rusty crayfish, it's going to be the same thing. Once the awareness is there, you start to notice how it's everywhere. Yeah, but thanks for the efforts at removal, and we'll continue with that. I might even go cut some heads on my own. You're very inspiring, Mike. I might have to see if I can get 3 bags instead of 2. Little friendly competition there. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share? I don't know. He's calmed down now. Hey, Joe. For the first year and a half or so of Good Natured Hour, I was always joined on Tuesday nights by Tech Support Puppy. Today I've got a very sound asleep. Come here, buddy. This morning, I did a program down at the homestead in Batavia for their Dog Days of Summer. And the activity director down there said, "Hey Pam, do you ever do any dog programming, dog-based programming?" And I said, "Well, I haven't, but I've got dogs. That's one thing for sure. So I've got a very sleepy boy. Well, I guess he's not going to want to come on camera here. Come here, Joe. This is come here. Joey. He's going to be 14 on October 1st. This was the puppy that I got. Come on. Come on. He's beat. He had to work today, so he's exhausted. Anyway, he was panting throughout the first half of the program, and it sounded like I had some kind of heavy breathing creeper in the office here with me. It's just my buddy here. Come on, Joe. Determined. There we go. There he is. Joey says, "Have a great evening, folks. Appreciate your time." And oh, hold on, we got one more chat. Yes, Jerry, the tadpole that was seized at O'Hare. So the tadpole that's at Hickory Knolls is the sole survivor. We were down to 2, and we gave one to Red Oak, and it did survive its transformation. But then, yeah, I don't know what happened, but they don't have their frog anymore. But ours is eating. He's growing. He's got a nice fat belly. We actually are going to be. I was just texting about this earlier in the evening. There's a teacher at Elgin High School who is donating the setup that she had for her classroom turtle. She's rehomed the turtle, but she's got a 75-gallon tank with 2 canister filters and all kinds of cool stuff. So this little tadpole, who's now a little bullfrog, is going to be living in the Taj Mahal of frog setups once we get it all put together. But yeah, I'll do an update on him once we get that set up. Right now, he's living in a 20-gallon tank with a little dish of water and all the mealworms, crickets, and cockroaches he can eat. So he's doing well. Doesn't have a name yet. We'll have to figure that out. I still call him Tad. It might
Been
be
rooting
Tad
for
Helium.
him, so I'm glad. Meanwhile, Laura's daughter Elizabeth just sent me texted a photo of sweet potato fungus. I will send it to you if you're interested. It looks like a sweet potato.
Oh, like a mushroom?
Yeah, it's some sort of fungus.
Okay,
I'll send it to you. Maybe you'll, yeah.
Tune in next week, folks, when we learn about sweet potato fungus. Awesome.
Thanks, Pam.
All right, guys. Everybody, have a great night. Joey's conked out again, so I'm going to take him home. Appreciate your time this evening, and we'll see you back again next week.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Pam.
Pam.
Everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.